Please call the roll.
Commissioner Perrine,
Here.
Commissioner McGurk,
Here.
Commissioner Ashley,
Here.
Vice Mayor Martin,
Present.
Mayor Cleveland.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. So we're going to swap the order tonight to answer questions, we hope, before they get asked. And so many of you will have questions or comments. We will have public participation indeed, but I'd like to start off by asking our Development Services Director, Shane Corbin, to come forward with his report.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm going to be very brief. I know we've got a short, compressed time tonight. The applicant will do most of the talking. I just want to give a little bit of history so we get caught back up to where we're at. So this entire idea began being crafted in October 28th of 2021 when the New Smyrna Beach Economic Development Advisory Board hosted a workshop with 100 attendees and 45 survey participants where they came up with some strategies to diversify the local tax base, enhance utilities infrastructure, and ensure a quality labor pool. So that idea was born. And then in February of 2022, the Southeast Volusia Chamber held a leadership summit where this site was clearly identified for the first time as a target area for redevelopment or development. On October 25th, 2022, the Commission approved the Southeast Volusia Regional Economic Development Plan. Within that plan, there was strategy number one, prioritize 3 New Smyrna Beach sites to become shovel-ready. And the priority site of those 3 was the vacant land west of 95 and south of State Road 44 for a master plan Class A industrial park. And that's the location of what we're talking about tonight. So following all of that development, staff began to engage the landowner and their attorney and began crafting this and going through the steps of approval process. Last spring, there was a text amendment to the comprehensive plan to allow industrial mixed use on this site. That's been approved. That went through planning and zoning and 2 readings, as well as a future land use change to the land use map to allow this zoning district to go in. And so where we're at now is we're looking at, I'm sure you've seen it, the PUD, and that has all the details about the design standards, the list of permitted uses, and things of that nature. So it is consistent with the comprehensive plan at this point, what's being requested. And with that, I want to hand it over to the applicant and let them have the bulk of the time unless you have a question for me.
Any questions for Director Corbin? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Glenn Storch, and I do represent the landowner in this case. Again, we were asked to be part of this. We've done everything we can to be your partner, and that's what we'll continue to be. And it's been a great experience for me to work together with so many people to get the input on this. So I want to make sure that everyone understands this because this was a question. This is a contract that we are now proposing. You have the comp plan, you have what this area should be. We are now creating part of the planning, and that is the contract. So that's the next stage, the zoning. And then you go for the permitting, you go for designs, you go for all the stuff that's going to take years. But this is a contract with strong requirements that we placed into it and written obligations to accomplish city goals. The agreements, and this is another question I had from one of the residents, we need to make clear, the agreements that we make on this, if it's approved and signed by both parties, those agreements run with the land. It's not because of each party. If we sell it, it runs with the land. So those agreements stay in place until you decide that those agreements need to be changed for some reason. So that's it. The next one is, if I can, how do we do this? Well, let's do it this way. Nope. There we go. So I looked at this as what are the city's goals? And that's what we worked with Shane on. How do we accomplish city goals? So the first goal that the city that Shane just told you about was, how do we increase the non-residential tax base to relieve the tax burden on residents? So, two things. This is not a residential community per se. This is a mixed-use community. And the intent is to make sure that you have the industrial part, the business part, the non-residential areas that you're looking for, because that's the key for your goal as far as reducing the tax burden on the residents of the city. So we are now required, as part of the PUD itself, to have to build a 500,000 square feet of non-residential and have another 500,000 square feet permitted, fully through the permitting process, before a single residential home is built. So that will take, as you can imagine, probably years to get this accomplished. But that's important to you because that's where we're putting our focus and our energy. Upon build-out, and this is what's important also, because this accomplishes your goal, this one project will generate, based on the estimate of the valuations based on the number of square feet, this one project will increase your non-residential tax valuations by approximately $2.7 billion. And that will adjust your tax revenues from 83% residential, which was the reason you were doing this in the first place, to 63% residential, which is where approximately it should be in most cities. Oops, wrong one. So the next issue, the big issue, is how do we do with stormwater? Because stormwater has been such a major event for so many of us. I mean, as you know, I was flooded myself twice, and I have no development around me, but I was flooded twice because we have such a change in weather patterns. And so what you have asked us to do, how can we do this in such a way where we are actually literally designing for hurricanes, which really doesn't happen very often, but that's what that's what we're encountering. We're doing this as a regional design. So this is a 1,600-acre parcel. So rather than designing floodwater or stormwater management for each individual parcel, each 25-acre, whatever parcel you typically have, we're designing this for a 1,600-acre parcel. And we're designing it in such a way where we actually can accommodate and deal with the hurricane level floods. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but at my house, we had 6 feet of water on my site, at my house. 6 feet high of water that came in. And so you've got to find somewhere for that water to go. Fortunately for us, like in Babcock Ranch, we have a place for it to go. We have an area south of the, as you know, this is part of a 70,000-acre parcel. And we have an area south of this that we just put into conservation, 3,700 acres in conservation, that would be perfect for allowing this water to be redirected to, and there it can sit. It can recharge the area until it gently flows out after a while. You've got to deal with that initial stormwater encounter of so much water coming at the same time. And that's what we have. We have a place for it to go. On top of that, as you probably know, tied to that 3,700 acres, we also have an additional, well, the total amount is 46,000 acres of conservation easements. That's 71 square miles of conservation easements that are all attached. Part of those attached conservation easements will be attached to the natural vegetation that we are preserving as part of Deering Park Innovation Center. On top of that, the PUD requires massive studies, designs, and permits to be reviewed by the city and requires public meetings to ensure those goals are set. Now, this is going to take a while. This will probably take a couple of years just to do the studies itself, because these will probably be regional studies, because this is a regional plan that we're trying to deal with. But that's okay. I mean, we're not in any hurry to build houses. We will be working together on this. I'm trying to get this done before Williamson goes in, because that way we can incorporate the Williamson hardscape into our stormwater design. And that's the advantage to that. Next. That's not it. All right. So The other issue that we've heard from residents is we have got to do something to protect Venetian Bay. So this contract repeatedly prohibits any stormwater runoff from Venetian Bay, in the Venetian Bay community or the Utilities Commission property that is directly north of this property. And also requires any runoff in culverts under I-95 to be equal or less than the current undeveloped amounts. The reason for that is because you have to still have some mechanism to provide for the wetlands on the other side. So you have to have some water going there. You just have to stop the amount. And that's how we're going to deal with designing this system. No construction is permitted until that comprehensive stormwater system is developed and approved by the landowner, by the city, and by St. John's Water Management District. We will come back before you and have a hearing. And also, I think I promised to do a hearing before the planning board as to the stormwater system that we've worked together with the staff on creating to make sure that it meets the criteria and the goals that we've set. Now, one of the questions I've had, especially from people of Venetian Bay, is what can you learn from Venetian Bay that you can use to make this a better project? And I thought that was a very good question. And so one of the problems is accountability. Accountability is everything when you're looking at these things. You have to provide for an annual analysis of your stormwater management system, rather than just letting it sit and lose maintenance or whatever else. So we have required an annual analysis of the system to make sure it works as designed and still complies with the goal of the PUD, i.e. that water doesn't go to Venetian Bay or the UC or so much the other area. And that's absolutely critical. And that we will give a copy of that report to the city for their review as well. The analysis will be paid by Deering Park Innovation Center and shared with the city. We also have learned that there may be issues as far as how things were built. So we've required an as-built survey to be built for our stormwater management system, so that as it's built, there'll be an as-built survey, but it will be reviewed by an independent surveyor to be provided by the city to confirm that the stormwater system is constructed in accordance with the requirements for all the permits. So that if you have an issue such as we are aware of, where there's a gap between a wetland on one side of the property and a stormwater system on another, and it was supposed to be like this, and it's like this instead, that will be caught then and there and fixed beforehand. We also require responsibility for regular maintenance. Again, this is one of the problems you have with a lot of stormwater maintenance systems. They're not maintained. Sometimes they expect the city to maintain it. Sometimes you expect the HOA to maintain it. Sometimes HOAs don't do what they're supposed to do. But we won't go into that right now. But the bottom line is you've got to have a mechanism to maintain those systems regularly. And that has to be a fiduciary duty of that maintenance. So what we've provided for is the creation of a taxing district on Innovation Center to ensure that we have a government that will do it to maintain those systems, and also to provide for the financing necessary. So whatever it costs to maintain that system, we'll be able to derive that system in perpetuity. The PUD also requires the landowner to provide a stormwater maintenance bond. So this is a new concept. You've never seen a stormwater maintenance bond before because there hasn't been one that I'm aware of. But what we agreed to was to create a stormwater maintenance bond, so if there is an issue with the stormwater management system, that you have a mechanism to get money immediately if it's not fixed immediately. You don't have to mess around. You don't have to mess around with people saying, oh, it's not me, it's not me. No one wanting to take responsibility, no one wanting to pay for it. There's a mechanism to get there and to have money available. This is the first of its kind. Hopefully it'll be a model for the future. All right? Again, stormwater was so important, so I wanted to put that at the top. Now, also, we are increasing the infrastructure, the public infrastructure and the amenities west of 95. So we've already provided for a minimum 55-acre parcel to the city for community use and sports complex. The city asked for this and asked for the location and said it could be a little bigger. We've actually shown this as 60 acres on this map. You have it right here. The PUD also provides for a minimum 10-acre parcel for a new police substation. It provides for an 8-acre parcel with Utilities Commission use, and it also provides for a 35-acre site for a new school that is now intended as a CTE high school that will connect students to the business park. We're looking at the idea of students being interns and being able to go back and forth, and it really looks like an ideal location and size. So the idea is to have one CTE school on the east side and one CTE school on the west side. We've also provided for miles of connecting bike trails. All those all those bike trails that we're building, those will all be public trails. All trails that we're working on, it will be tied to the City of New Smyrna bike trails. It'll be tied to the Florida Regional Bike Trail System. It'll go down, it'll go under 442 as well, and then tied to the system that goes across Farmington, and then tied that goes all the way across the state of Florida. This is really an impressive system that the entire city will go to. We'll look at the idea of where the trailheads will be for these systems as part of this. But we're trying to design this in such a way where we're making this as much of a natural trail as possible to create this through the natural vegetation areas and the wildlife corridors. The PUD will also provide for the transfer of appropriate right-of-ways to provide for transportation systems that are less reliant on 44. So Williamson Boulevard, I think that was about 63 acres. We've already transferred to the county. So that is a right-of-way that will eventually be able to be built, if I remember correctly, for up to 6 lanes. Is that correct? That's what I thought. It's wide enough for 6 lanes, but it's designed in such a way where it's a boulevard. This is not the Williamson that you're seeing up in Daytona. This will be Williamson, will be tree-lined on both sides. They'll have medians, there'll be trees. Everything here is to create this lush entranceway into this area, and all the way down to 442, or Indian River Boulevard. We've also tried to look at other ways to try to keep traffic off of 44. For instance, there's connections that will be between us and South Village. There are road connections that will be worked to create between us and Ocean Gate PUD. There are obviously accesses between us and Deering Park North, and the county has asked us to provide a right-of-way to allow for a eventual bridge over 95 south of 44. So again, all this is done with the idea of trying to reduce traffic on 44. We've also worked hard to maintain natural vegetation, habitat corridors, and to create conservation easements. So this is something we're really good at. So far, my client has created approximately 71 square miles of wildlife habitat corridor, conservation easements that are perpetual. And on top of that, these conservation easements are layered. You have a number of different entities owning as beneficiaries of each of the conservation easements, so that one entity can't change their mind and say, we're going to sell it or turn it into a golf course or whatever else. So that's really important to us as well. On top of that, we have a mechanism, and part of it's because of the taxing district we have there. We have a taxing district called the Deering Park Stewardship District that literally creates taxing districts to allow us to maintain those conservation easements. Because you're trying to create native vegetation in those areas, so you want to take out invasive species. It takes probably $200,000 to $300,000 a year for us just to take invasive species out on this site, just to let you know. But we'll have a minimum of 400 acres that will be tied to this area as part of our overall habitat corridor. As I said, the cost of maintaining that conservation easement will be borne by us. And by the way, in the event New Smyrna is one of the beneficiaries, which we've indicated would be preferred if possible, New Smyrna would not be responsible for the cost. A 50-foot natural vegetation buffer is also required along State Road 44. It's already heavily vegetated, but what that will do is it will create a view shed and a screen from traffic. And so when you go into this entrance, you won't even notice 44 being there. This encourages a live, work, play community that encourages a reduction of automobile traffic. So we've created Bicycle and personal electric vehicle connections and trails throughout the entire community, again, to encourage the reduction of the need for automobiles. Even though it's walkable, I know that Commissioner McGurk was very concerned about this. Even though we have this walkability, we are not decreasing parking. We will have parking for any residences that are meeting the standards or exceeding those standards. The PUD itself provides for a commercial village to provide for shopping, restaurant, entertainment to the area west 95. This will also reduce probably traffic east 95 because it'll be a place to go as opposed to having to go all the way into the east side. It's important to me that we are able to comply with all the obligations. I mean, I think this is like a 38-page document, and it's difficult sometimes to understand and remember all the obligations that we have. So one of the things we're doing that's fairly unique is we're creating this checklist that shows every single thing that has to be checked when they're going through a plat or a site plan or something else, that the staff can then do that. We can sign off on, everybody can sign off on it to make sure that it complies with the PUD. Resiliency and sustainability. So we provide stormwater designs that will literally direct unprecedented amounts of stormwater into areas to allow for recharge and restoration of wetlands. The utility designs shall plan for hardening of utilities, and this is all some of the stuff we've taken from Babcock Ranch, how they survived the hurricanes without any injury, without any loss of power, without any loss of internet, et cetera. So all electric service, internet service, key traffic signalization are required to be placed underground and to protect those lines from storm impacts. The PUD also provides that the construction shall adhere to a higher standard to accomplish water and energy efficiency and conservation. This is very important to everyone, and we'll be providing a minimum site. A minimum site will be 50% open space. Now, to accomplish the goal of those higher standards, we are going to utilize the Sustainable Floridian Certification and Monitoring Program, and we also have other things built into our system, such as the fact that all landscape plant material, and obviously we're preserving a lot of the plant material that's already there, but all landscape plant material should be either Florida native vegetation or Florida-friendly plant material to reduce or eliminate the need for irrigation and for replanting. The PUD provides for planning for colors for buildings, shall include the consideration of the use of higher light reflective values for paint and roofing materials. Because again, anything you can do to reduce the actual energy use is what we're doing. And we're trying to meet this into the 21st and 22nd century. We'll also provide that residents to meet the Energy Star program standards. We know that things are getting hotter, and we know that it's not as easy to walk down sidewalks if you don't have shade. And so one of the things that we think is important, and you'll see this during Park North and during Park Center as well, is we plan all of our sidewalks to have trees to encourage pedestrian paths as protection from the sun. We also provide the stormwater management lakes that we're doing. We'll encourage dual uses of the lakes by allowing the lakes to be used as amenities, and that we're providing habitat for those lakes by making sure that at least a minimum of 50% of the slopes are planted in appropriate native vegetation around the lakes itself. And on top of that, that the shoreline has at least 25% a littoral shelf built. So a littoral shelf is under the water, which is a little shallower than the actual, but shallow enough to allow for certain vegetation to grow there as well. By doing that, it creates a clean, natural lake without the necessity of having to clean all the algae out. So that's the reason for that. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Glenn. I appreciate that. This pitch can be available on the city website coming forward. Okay, so I want to make sure that we'll have some comments.
I'd say hopefully what we've done is what you asked us to do. But I've got to tell you that I greatly appreciate everyone we've received input from in the last 7 months, because some of that stuff is directly from them.
Very good. I appreciate that. Thank you for those of you that came in late, we asked for the presentation up front so that you could listen, hear, and understand and it may answer some of your questions and some of your have assuaged some of your comments ahead of time, and want to give you the full opportunity to have participation and understanding more. So we'll have public participation now. This will be a monologue on your part, not a dialogue, so we won't answer any questions. Mr. Storch won't answer any questions in the room. He's done speaking for the night. So should you launch a question, I know that he's a forthright man. He will get back to you with the city staff's assistance, okay? So when you come forward, this is the topic that we're on for the night, for this meeting. And so you'll have your 3 minutes, your name and address for the record. I'll be tight on the 3 minutes because I'm assuming we'll have a lot of people that would like to have something to say. And then following that, the commission will have their questions and comments of Mr. Storch. With that, anybody for public participation? Evening,
Good
Cindy.
evening, Commissioners. Cindy Harris, South Glencoe Road. I understand it's a contract, but we can always amend a contract. I just have a few concerns that maybe we want to think about. One of them, of course, is the 50-foot buffer along State Road 44. I think it needs to be a lot wider. Noise factor. We want to make it beautiful, so maybe a 100-foot buffer would be nice. The PowerPoint that I looked online evidently got updated, so there were some things that I wasn't aware of, and one of them was there's also going to be entertainment. And I live east of 95. I'm like 7 miles from the racetrack, and I can hear it. So if during Park Innovation Center is going to have entertainment, maybe a sound buffer would be nice too, so that I don't have to hear that as well. The watershed issue, I know they're going to shed south, but I also know that stormwater has no boundaries. So maybe we could also consider that it doesn't flow east like it does anyway, that we could also look at that. There's going to be 2,150 units built. I just did a little calculation in my head, like 3.15 residents per unit. We're looking at another 7,000 people living there. And then you take on the hotel guests as well, so that's going to be a lot more traffic on 44. I know Williamson's going to be 6-laned, but there's still going to be a lot of traffic on 44, so maybe we need to look at maybe some more traffic control sort of situation there, because 44, where I live, trying to get off on the weekends just to go to the grocery store 2 miles from my home is just horrendous. So we need to look at that maybe. And I talked about flooding. Some of the things that just came up on the PowerPoint was the stormwater maintenance bond. I'd like that explained maybe a little bit more. Does that cover damages to people who are already existing, maybe east of 95? I think what they're doing for Venetian Bay is awesome, but again, stormwater has no boundaries, so a little bit more of an explanation on that would help. So again, I thought it was great. I know we can amend a contract, but maybe just spread it out a little bit more to help those that already pre-exist here too. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Cindy. Appreciate your comments, ma'am. Evening, Robbie.
Good evening. Robbie Gibson Minor, 2839 South Oceano Court, New Smyrna Beach. And I'm here tonight speaking on behalf of the New Smyrna Beach Residents Coalition. Over the past several months, we have had some opportunity to have some dialogue with representatives of the Deering family, and we have appreciated that they reached out to a number of people in our community. When I first met with Mr. Storch, I shared with him a 4-page list of questions, concerns, suggestions, and areas where we thought there might be further information. And that was developed by over 30 members of our leadership group and our sustainability and resiliency committee. So the input into that was from many people. And many of our areas were concerned with the environment. A regional stormwater plan, having things in perpetuity, the conservation lands and the maintenance of those, and accountability for everything down the line. And they certainly have been receptive to listening to that, so I hope that that will continue as others bring forward suggestions and ideas as they hear this plan. It's an opportunity for the city, but it's also a responsibility that down the road, it's something that this commission is proud of and not something that another commission is saying that they're having to put out some fires. So thank you so much, and thank you for this workshop this evening.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your comments. Mr. Adi.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Tony Adi, 3530 Grand Tuscany Way in Venetian Bay. There are two long-standing city goals that I'm very familiar with. The one is encouraging higher wage jobs, and another is diversification of the tax base, which Glenn spoke to. On the jobs, I'm sure that every one of the 452 graduates of New Smyrna Beach High School last year would appreciate the opportunity to have a higher wage job here in their hometown. That's just not very feasible in a town that the economic driver is leisure and hospitality. That sector is not known for producing higher wage jobs. Now, those two city goals of the higher wage jobs and diversifying the tax base, those are very common and long-standing among a number of cities. What's the typical city response to that? It's the city preparing, developing an industrial park. At airports, New Smyrna Beach Airport, DeLand Airport, Volusia County, DeLand crossings at I-4 and 44. Here is a situation where a developer is going to help us make substantial progress in these two goals. And as I look at this developer, I see something unusual in my experience. In my experience, it's typical for a developer to come to town, get an option on a piece of property that's contingent, the closing is contingent on them getting all their entitlements approved. This is a different situation. The developer already owns the property. So what I see here is an opportunity to make substantial progress towards two long-standing city goals, and I recommend approval. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. There. Do it.
Hello, good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for your time. I think in an ideal world for me, this project...
Just name and address for the record, sir.
I'm sorry. Brian White, 2464 Lydia Way.
Thanks, Brian. Glad you're
welcome.
back.
Yeah. In an ideal world, this project wouldn't move forward. It represents suburban sprawl, a growth model that for our state has contributed to flooding, environmental devastation, and strain on infrastructure. That isn't just my personal opinion. It's a fact supported by years of empirical research and the lived experiences of countless Floridians. However, I recognize the reality that despite overwhelming public opposition to projects such as this one, it appears that Commission is intended to improving. It's disappointing, but it's reality. I think that in exchange for building this project, the developer should provide real, tangible benefits to our community, not just donating land. Land donations for recreation and schools are a good start, but land alone is not enough. Will developers fund these projects, or will taxpayers bear the cost? In cities across the country, both large and small, developers have contributed to parks, affordable housing, public transit, infrastructure, and much more. I think this developer can and should do the same. Second, the proposed amenities do not offset the downsides of this project. This project will increase traffic, strain public services, and erode the character of our community. Additionally, recent referenda have reduced or eliminated the tax revenues from new commercial developments. As a resident less than a mile from this site, I ask, what do I or any current resident gain from this project? Chain restaurants and zero lot line homes do not improve the character of our town. We need more. We need playgrounds, we need recreation centers, we need parks, we need conservation lands without the con of land mitigation, and we need a commitment from developers to fully fund these amenities, not just donate land. If the project must move forward, it needs to give back to us in a meaningful way. Third, just a reminder, the Commission has no obligation to accept this deal. Your duty is to protect and enhance our quality of life. The real estate market is shifting. Commercial spaces need committed tenants, and vague promises of involvement are unreliable. Without clear, enforceable commitments, the development will create more problems than benefits. Finally, let's be honest about traffic. Restricting it west of I-95 is unrealistic. People will come into town and we don't have a solution. Traffic that is already bad will get worse, and rather than ignoring this reality, we must demand a better plan. In closing, if the project becomes inevitable, it must work for our community, not just for the developers. I urge you to hold them accountable and secure real benefits for the people of New Smyrna Beach. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate your opinions.
Good evening. My name is Sonia Guidry. I live at 1205 Lurian Street, New Smyrna Beach, mainland side. Florida resident. My father was a Florida resident, and my grandfather told us if you ever buy land, make sure you go there after a storm. Now, he died in 1962. So, all right, I wanted to say this, that I do know that if you're going to shuttle the water south, the storm water south, I know it's going to go into the area that's a conservation area that feeds into this Spruce Creek watershed. And I think a lot of people have already shown the Spruce Creek watershed goes north and finally needs to go east. I have myself paddled Hunting Camp Road, let's say 1 mile south of 44. And we had to do it at low water, not high water, go under the culvert, paddled all the way around to US 1. I've done that far. So I'm just saying, there's a big watershed going there, and until people can really truly figure out how to build, have people living safely in a wetland area, I just still see a great big problem here with the watershed. And I have taken a tour, and I've seen a mini example, a small example of what they plan to do with a long linear pond that should accumulate this water. But we all know when you've got Turnbull Bay backing up, you've got all these, the storm system, everything fills up, and there's water everywhere. So I just wish we could have a building plan if you have to build. Mind you, I prefer it to be a wildlife corridor, and I see the weakness going north. Thank goodness for Spruce Creek and its watershed.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your comments. Hello, Mr. Williams.
Good evening. My name is Bob Williams, 767 Pine Shore Circle. Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners, and staff. I want to highlight a few key points regarding this project. From an environmental perspective, how often do you have a project where the owner is willing to put tens of thousands of acres into conservation, including the establishment of a wildlife habitat corridor? To dedicate valuable property to a park where reclaimed water can be diverted from the Indian River Lagoon to help save the lagoon and help recharge the aquifer that supplies all of our drinking water. To engineer a stormwater master plan that will not increase and may in fact reduce the impact of major storms to surrounding neighborhoods, and to commit in writing to posting a bond to guarantee their commitment. And they've committed to not make the mistake of Venetian Bay, of placing their commercial district in the middle of the development, but instead locating it along State Road 44 so that it can benefit the entire region and make the businesses more sustainable. They commit to not building any residences until hundreds of thousands of square feet of mixed-use commercial have been constructed. These are just a few of the amazing aspects of this project. But I assert to you that this project is a model for low-impact development and will serve our community and our children with housing and jobs for generations to come. It makes me sad that uninformed people are spreading fear, uncertainty, and doubt about this project. I don't criticize anyone for having questions, but I do challenge anyone with questions to get involved in the project, as I have found the project team to be exceptionally open to working to find solutions to all legitimate concerns that have been raised. And, you know, as a multi-generation Floridian, our grandfathers and great-grandparents, thank goodness that they did planning like this, although most of the people in this room wouldn't have a place to live at this point. So thank you for considering this. Please help us move this world-class, low-impact development project, as it is strategically important to preserving and enhancing the quality of life for all citizens of New Smyrna Beach. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments, sir.
Hello, I'm Nicole Beth. I reside at 133 Saxon Drive. I'm a resident of New Smyrna Beach for 7 years. I don't know much about this project, but I did see a bubble diagram a few months back referring to the one that was presented today. So last minute, I saw the advertisement and I ran down here to hear what was going to be presented. And my response is specifically to the items that were presented, nothing other than that. These items may already be considered in the schematic design because it's right now in concept as a PUD. Maybe they're thinking of the schematic and the design development later, but these comments are just my thoughts as a ex-planner, theme park designer, and sustainable development consultant for cities and private clients. The first would be, I commend them for doing working on the conservation. I do know that there is the Florida Biocorridor that runs to the east in the center of our state, that runs all the way from the south to the north and through to allow for the Panther Walk and et cetera, et cetera. Again, the buffer, I saw that there's a buffer. People may want it larger, but what I did see is that there are isolated islands of nature, and I don't see any lateral connections or vertical connections. And it looks very simple that just small little connectors would actually move the wildlife and biocorridor laterally to the buffer to the center of the wildlife corridor that we already have existing in Florida. So just small little tweaks like that, and they could be on the schematic because this is just the first phase PUD, I believe. I'm not sure where they are in the process. Be nice to see that they weren't isolated. Number two, I do have experience in working and seeing closed-loop stormwater systems. They actually are very efficient and actually cost less for the city and the owner in the long run. Underground baffles where the water, watershed goes into the stormwater side, the runoff on the road to side underground, and then baffles, and then they recycle to smaller ponds, et cetera, et cetera. You can look that up. They're just closed-loop stormwater. The Destination 55-acre sports part, I think that's wonderful. It'd be really nice to see something like the abandoned wave pool that was scheduled to go in Edgewater that was abandoned. This could serve as like a half day or full day to kind of offload all the traffic coming in to that area, and then possibly shuttles back to the beach. But it would actually move traffic away from the growth that we're seeing right here on the island. A half day, it would dump half the traffic, and then it would also the full day would dump it at two different times.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Appreciate your comments.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Hello, I'm Suzanne Schreiber with Dream Green Volusia, and I live in Ormond Beach. So I just carted a binder up here, and this is a binder on all of Farmington that I picked up about four and a half to 5 years ago. I drove to South Brevard County and met environmental attorney Leslie Blackner, and she had put together a good 12 to 13 binders, which I loaded in the back of my car. So back then, the binders were given to the county council, which was a different county council at the time, and to some various environmental people in our county, with me being one of them. This is the last one that I know of, and many probably have gone in the garbage because county council people, I don't think, keep binders forever, just like you probably would in a city commission. But what is my point? Elected officials come and go, and this Farmington area has been going on for quite some time. And so what is your legacy going to be in this part of this development? Hopefully, you do the right thing and you make decisions and you think through what you're doing to impact your citizens and many in all of Southeast Volusia. But this was quite a haul and this was quite an education, I just want to say. And county staff were given these as well. So one gentleman spoke tonight and brought up low-impact development and it being a model for low-impact development. And what I wanted to bring up is, Commissioners, I'm requesting a full-size table model of Deering Park that can be displayed for the public to see what the development's going to look like. Because perspective comes with visuals, and let's face it, we're talking about innovation here, so let's do something innovative. Let's have a model for the public. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your comments. Evening, Professor.
Hello, Mayor. I hope my voice holds out. Crystal Saylor. I live at 645 Ball Street here in New Smyrna Beach. Born and raised in Florida. I hadn't intended to speak, but I just feel I should. So I think that one of the big issues, especially is flooding. I don't think flooding is based on weather changes. I think flooding is based on development. I had a really amazing article. I need to find the link and send it to you. It was a study in Scientific American. I think it was backed up with the Army Corps of Engineers. And they've come to the conclusion after many years of seeing fill and mitigation with drainage ponds and flood control, that it's not a sustainable model. It's not working in the long term. I think the other thing that I really wanted to mention was that the original designation of this land was forestry, agriculture, and conservation. And there was likely a reason for that, because at that time, we knew better than to develop wetlands. I'm certain I have other things to say, but clearly I'm not feeling super well, but those were just the main points I wanted to bring up. You know, other people have said plenty of stuff about the impact of traffic and that kind of thing. I've seen so many changes in my lifetime in this state, and there's only a little bit of real natural Florida left. And what's the legacy? In 30 years, are people going to go, you know, what are they going to say? I mean, I would love to see, I lived in Cocoa Beach, and we could walk one way and be at the ocean, and we could walk the other way and go hunting and fishing. We didn't even have to get on our bicycles to do either. And, you know, that'll never happen again. But to keep as much real Florida the way it is, there's not going to be many chances. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Appreciate your comments, ma'am. Jess Romero. Good evening, Jess.
Good evening. Jess Romero, 708 South Cooper Street. I don't know if any of you have this 37-page document. There was a 35-page document that was on the website today in regards to the 325 draft of the Deering Park Innovation Center PUD and MDA. I don't know if you have it in front of you. But I happened to go through it. First of all, I want to thank you for this workshop. It's a great idea. It's needed to be heard from Mr. Storch and the residents that have questions. I have more questions, but it's not enough time for this. But I went down the page here, and reading this PUD here, MDA, on page 1, paragraph 4, it says, no site plan, as Mr. Storch already mentioned, shall be submitted until a minimum of 500,000 square foot non-residential has been completed construction on site plan for additional 500,000 square foot has been developed, has been approved. All right, so an explanation of what construction means. Does that mean a structure on it? Or does that mean just putting infrastructure up to the property line? There's no explanation of what it means. So they can build 500,000 square feet. Okay, here's a lot, there's a power, there's your water. I'm done. I met my requirement. There's no explanation of that. And we go on to page 6, overall property criteria. Paragraph B, line 7. The city and owner, says will, work together to the extent that this site can be a catalyst for the extension of infrastructure and funding to develop pad-ready sites for offices and light industrial uses for the project. And pad-ready site would be defined as a subdivided lot, vehicle access, utilities provided, to the site and provision, not on site, provision for stormwater capacity. The word, in my opinion, the word will and would should be shall, because that depends them to do it. Not just will and could, it's different. Now, the question I ask is, does pad ready sites mean a developer has met its threshold of the 500,000 square feet to develop? No one knows. So page 18, facing a priority mixed-use non-residential development. Paragraph 3, section 1, no building permit for residential will be issued 3 years, no earlier than 3 years earlier after the approval of the recording. Paragraph 2, in addition to the 3-year period, parties agree to further restrict the time frame for residential development as follows. Paragraph 2A, no site plan or subdivision for residential shall be submitted to the city until a minimum of 500,000 square foot non-residential has been completed construction. Again, we don't know what construction means. And site plans for a minimum of 500,000 square feet of non-residential has been submitted for permitting to the city. So, but now we have an accelerated clause. On page 19, line 4, for example, if after the initial construction and site plan approval has been provided to allow to start date and it's beyond a 3-year time construction, then if 2 million additional square feet additional of non-residential development sites plans are approved and 1 million of those square feet constructed, then phases 2, 3, and 4 will be accelerated by 2 years.
Thank you, Jess. Appreciate your comments.
I'll email more questions.
Thank you so very much.
Good evening. I'm Gina Holt, 1798 Hideaway Lane. Something that I believe we can all agree on is that the large-scale displacement of water and displacement of wildlife habitat that is a direct result of the current model of development in our area is egregious. It's unacceptable. The one thing that jumped out at me up there was, and I realize there weren't a whole lot of details, but they were talking about connecting their bike trails to the whatever Central Florida bike trail thing. I'm not real familiar with it because I don't ride bikes. But I'm very familiar with wildlife because I've been rescuing wildlife, especially birds, in this area for 20 years. I do question why they stated that they would have the bike trails go through the wildlife corridor. I'm hoping that that wasn't really the intent, that that was just a sloppy bit of writing. But good Lord, wildlife is at such risk and such peril with the way we develop and the massive displacement of the habitat because of this development that goes all the way down where I live. I live just miles from the intersection of 442. So I'm going to see a whole lot of changes down there. So I would ask the developer and the city to scrutinize and to not allow bike paths through the wildlife corridor. The conservation areas should be conservation areas. People should stay out. The wildlife corridor should be to protect wildlife, not to encourage people to go in and view wildlife. Let them view it at a distance and keep out of the wildlife corridor. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your comments. Mr. Bluvac, good to see you, sir.
Good morning, Mayor, Commissioners, Manager. I have several points I'd like to make. The first one, and it's on everybody's mind, and that's stormwater management. We all know, as we've seen some of the presentations at the county, that water flows from the south to the north in Volusia. Here we have a development promised not to impact Venetian Bay or the Utilities Department, but in fact directs water to the south and west. The only thing that's south and west of 44 happens to be Samsula Canal. And while none of their water will directly affect us, certainly anything that goes into Samsula that is not there now is going to finishes us significantly. As an example, we just found that at the area of Samsula Canal, just opposite of Tuscany Square, there was flooding in Samsula Canal to the point where there was over 4 feet of water in the field across there. and that was essentially constant, meaning it doesn't seem like it was a title representation, but actually a capacity concern. And so if we're overflowing that with Ardesia Park, we're flowing that with South Village, we're flowing that with the Innovation Center, we're still talking piecemeal, and I'm hoping somebody puts things together. One of the requirements may be that the city is developing a stormwater model to be able to use that tool to ensure what we're doing. Second point is, you just went through a thing called Venetian Bay. We've got tons of lessons learned, and we'd like to share that with you. Third point, we're talking about people living there who work on site. Are they really going to be able to afford to live there, or are we just now creating a more significant traffic problem? Fourth point, sort of time constraints. We can't have a development go over 20, 30 years, as Venetian Bay did, if there's some way to maintain constraints to be able to have the city make alterations to the MDVA to be timely with what's going on. And lastly, is there a schedule of events? What we saw on the website, I hope, was not the PUD MDA. It didn't look anything like Venetian Bay's, and there ought to be a schedule of when the city is going to develop that and approve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate that.
Hello, guys. My name's Greg Ebright. I am a coach for youth sports here in town. I've been coaching for 5 years. Right now, currently, my issue is with basketball, elementary and middle school kids, trying to get a place to practice. I've been working with Rob and Michelle and trying to get time at the gym, and I have not been able to get any. They finally just broke down and gave me a half of a court.
Don't mean to stop you there. Does this apply to the Deering Park development?
No, it's the city gym.
The city commission meeting will meet at 6:30 tonight, and you'll have an opportunity in public participation to talk about that. This is a special workshop just for this development right now.
Oh, okay.
No problem.
All right, it's 6:30 here.
6:30 right here.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Anyone else for public participation? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Bell. I live at 2224 Deerwood Drive. I commend the fact that they're saying they're not going to be building any housing until after certain other things are achieved. But I didn't hear anything about affordable housing. I read something recently that the average house costs $335,000. I have grandkids. I'm a lifelong Floridian and been here 25 years. I have grandkids, adult grandkids who can't afford to buy a house. I'm hoping that something, as they're getting into talking about the houses, they said 55-foot lots. I can remember I was with the news chief reporter back in the 80s, and we were astonished when they approved 50-foot lots. I'm old enough to remember 100-foot lots and 125-foot lots. So I am hoping that when y'all get around to, and I think Glenn's done a really good job on this presentation, but when they get around to the housing part of it, that some property is set aside for affordable housing and bigger than 55-foot lots, if you will. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else for public participation?
Cindy Sneezak, 512 Yukon. Thank you for doing this. As you can see, we're already running over time, so I was kind of hoping that when the commitment was made by this commission, that there would be an open discussion that included Q&A by the developer. What I think I've heard so far is there have been private meetings with some people about some of those topics where there have been Q&A, so I suggest that there may be a follow-up that's needed. A couple quick things, because it's a long list. two different versions of this that I've seen in the last 3 days, so I may just be confused. But what's the length of the MDA that requires this build-out? I see some rather strict requirements that the city must act within a certain number of years on the land that's being dedicated to us for sports, police, etc. Otherwise, we forfeit that land back to the developer. So quid pro quo, where is that set of boundaries or guardrails on this? Also, I didn't see any guarantee that no wetlands would be filled. That's a concern. I see no guarantee there's no use of mitigation credits, wetland mitigation credits, which is what has sunk some developments in the past. One gentleman already spoke about it, and I noticed it from the very first draft of this. We are waiving impact fees in order to get this contribution of land for facilities that will enhance Deering Park and the lifestyle that they will promote. Think about that. So you are guaranteeing, if that is not renegotiated to some responsible government position, you are guaranteeing that you are going to saddle us with bond issues within the next 5 years in order to do development of these facilities. I also am unclear whether or not when they say, you know, what the developer will and will not do, are they bringing power to it? Are they bringing roads to it? What are they doing before they intend to throw it over the wall for us to bear all the costs from? There's also some typos I'll speak to Mr. Storch about in one place 600 hotel rooms, another place 150 hotel rooms, 20% coverage versus 30% coverage. I'm sure those are just typos, but they're important if they end up in a contract that we end up signing. The other thing that I was surprised there was no staff presentation on is the significant change in building coverage, ground coverage, a FAR of 2.0, 80-foot high, 75-foot high buildings. That looks like it should need some, and the bottle is a way to handle that. But we're talking about a pretty substantial looking piece of real estate, and that's fine. I know we have to develop this, but I think a little more information is needed.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your comments. No, sorry, Glenn. Cindy Ciesniak.
Good evening. Clayton Crane, 2555 Arena Drive, New Smyrna Beach. As shared some of the same views the previous lady did about the, geez, lost train of thought. Well, we'll just start from where I was. But I share some of the same views she had. The donation of the land. A donation is something you give and you don't, you're giving. In this contract, it is wanting it back after a certain number of years if we don't do something. So that's not a donation to me. And it's holding us to doing something as a city, to spend money to develop this stuff. And that's how we look at that. And that's on the sports complex and the 10 acres of for police substation. Some of those things in the contract just need to be cleaned up. The bridge going over Glencoe. If people really knew about that, this would even be more packed. There's just stuff in there that is, it's not been made available. He talked about it in the presentation just real quick, but that's huge. You're sending a bridge over that to connect to 10th Street. I'm sure not many people have heard about that and know that it's in that contract. And there's just a lot of other things that really need to be cleaned up. The project's going to happen. This has been going for a long, long time, but this has also been sped up. Colwood wanted to see this, you know, through. This was his kind of baby, and this has definitely been sped up. Glenn has said before, they were asked by the city to join in. They didn't come to y'all. We asked them to come. So probably need to slow down and really think it through before, like last time, I remember you guys voted to approve because they were on a time limit. And we were gonna, when it got to site specific, we were gonna do it then. We should probably just slow down and really look at it and make sure it's what we want. There's just stuff in the contract that needs to be looked at more.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public participation? Seeing none, public participation is now closed. Looking at the timing, we'll likely have another workshop to continue to flush this out. But in deference to my colleagues, I think we'll spend the next 5 minutes with each of us having at least an opportunity to say one thing or another, so that you can hear our general first thoughts. Not all of our thoughts, because there are many. We've taken notes. We've been studying this for a while. So if we could each have one thing that we could offer, and then we'll adjourn and start over for the CRA and do that in 5 minutes. Commissioner Martin.
My two biggest at the moment are guardrails against morphing. We all know that Venetian Bay started as a great concept and then was allowed change after change after change in addition, so that it morphed over the years into a very different concept than the original one. So I have concerns about, I'd like to see guardrails against this type of morphing. And the other one is, I'd like to see mandates for amenities built out from grocery stores to parks in tandem with residents. Again, with using Venetian Bay as an example, they really don't have a community center, nor does it appear at this point they'll get one. And the stores, everybody's talking about trying to get to a grocery store. So from a cup of coffee to groceries to a park to a playground, amenities that are mandated to be in step with the development. Those are mine.
First thoughts, yes, ma'am. Thank you, Commissioner Ashley.
Thank you, Mayor. At least I agree with you, and I would just add the one word that comes to mind is consistency over time. I guess that's 3 words. Having lived in Venetian Bay and seen it develop, quote unquote, in the last 5 years, if somebody has a vision and sells the vision, and I think that the vision of Deering Park is a good one, once I like that 3D model I did too, by the way. Once the architecture plan is in place and we can kind of visually see it and we all agree that this is what we want it to look like, it should look like that until it's done. It shouldn't change over time. And that's all I have to say.
Appreciate that. Commissioner Perrine.
Thank you. I want to thank the public for all of their great comments tonight. I took notes, and I will be asking Mr. Storch a lot of these that jumped out at me. There's too many for me to say which one, because I think there were a lot that were very good and eye-awakening. I also appreciate that they put some economic development numbers into this time. I like seeing what the tax base was and what it's going to. I don't know of any other way we can reach that goal without doing this. And I think this is going to achieve what we need. We just got to iron out the details. And I think every single thing that the people mentioned tonight are very important. And I just want to thank everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. Commissioner McGurk.
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize to all of you who have come out, and we really don't have the time tonight to express what our thoughts and concerns are about this. But we will have more workshops. We are taking this slow, and that's why this is not the only workshop we're going to have on it, and this is why we're here. I want to tell you that this was probably one of, if not the most impressive public comments that I've ever been part of, because I want to tell you that everything that has been brought up here today is incredibly valid and accurate. So in a nutshell, with no real time to get into any details, yes, everybody here exhibited valid concerns, and this is exactly why we need to spend more time making sure that we're going to get the right kind of project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. I would say that planning for our future is essential rather than allowing it just to happen to us. You are living proof that you don't want it to just happen to us. You want those details, 1,000 of them, 10,000 of them, to be examined over and over again until we drain each of your concerns, each of your great ideas, and we pledge to do that. The opposite of this is just sitting here and saying, we're just going to leave it alone and see what happens. That would be a catastrophe, and that would be malpractice on part of our looking to the future that this commission's required to do. So we're going to handle the here and now today. You will hear from us again when we have another workshop, and I beg you, please turn out. Please give us your ideas. Between the Deering family commitment, between the staff's commitment and the city manager's commitment to making sure that this is drained fully, your commission will be eyes on the target day in and day out, over and over again, to make sure that we get what our citizens want our community to look like in 5 years and in 25 years, so that those questions that what the heck were they thinking will not be asked. They'll be very apparent to everyone. I thank you for your turning out, and we'll now convene the CRA.